No charges have been filed against actor Alec Baldwin or anyone on the set of that Santa Fe film production as the investigation into the fatal shooting of a cinematographer continues. Could Baldwin face criminal charges? What other legal problems could he or anyone else face?
With more on this, let's bring in legal analyst and consumer attorney Brian Kabateck. Thank you so much for being with us, Brian. So how likely is it that, I'll just start with Alec Baldwin himself, do you expect him to face criminal charges in this case?
Well, first of all, that's going to be a decision that's going to actually be made by the charging authorities in New Mexico. So they're going to have to look at a number of factors here. And the first factor is there some kind of intent? Was there an intent to cause bodily harm? And in criminal cases, we have varying degrees of charges. You could have anything from first-degree murder, where it was absolutely intended, down to what's actually called, believe it or not, negligent homicide. And that could be where your lack of actions, inactions, lack of taking care under the circumstances can lead to negligent charges. And there could be negligent charges here if it turns out that he knew or should have known, and those are the key words, should have known that there was a likelihood that the weapon could discharge. You know, one thing you understand very quickly is never point a weapon at somebody, whether it's loaded or unloaded, because you have to presume that it could cause severe bodily harm. So I would say that he's got a long road ahead of him. I'm quite surprised that he went and immediately started talking to the authorities, although on its face, that sounds like the right thing to do. But here's somebody who should have had a lawyer with him right from the very beginning, because under these circumstances, he could face charges, at least negligent homicide charges.
Well, we don't know if he has a lawyer, if in fact he had a lawyer with him when he went to talk to Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and by all accounts, you know, it seemed like he was extremely distraught, despondent about the whole thing, so he was just reacting there immediately to the tragedy. But we now know a little bit more of the strict protocols that are in place on a movie set like that. So there is someone who is responsible for checking the gun or making sure that this gun is safe. What about anyone else on the set? Could they possibly face these negligent criminal charges that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's possible. If somebody failed in their responsibility and their duty and they caused great bodily harm, they could face criminal charges. But then that opens the door to whether or not they face criminal charges or not. Civil liability is a completely different animal. It's a much lower threshold. It isn't beyond a reasonable doubt. It more often than not is just a preponderance of the evidence. It could be very likely that there could be civil cases that flow from this.
Okay, so civil liability or negligent criminal charges, either one, you would not be surprised?
I would not be surprised. I mean, I would almost be certain that there were going to be some kind of civil charges or civil liability that comes out of this as opposed to criminal charges. And let's take, for example, the fact that these individuals working on a set are generally not employees, because if they were employees, workers' comp might apply. But in the movie business, more often than not, people aren't employees. They're simply independent contractors working on a project. And here you have people who are considered above the line, director of photography, the director himself, who are the victims. So civil liability certainly could attach. It is very common on movie sets for injured people to sue the production company. And here, Mr. Baldwin apparently is one of the producers. So it doesn't mean that he, in his individual capacity, could be sued, although that's likely, but the production company could very likely be sued under these circumstances.
And we know that these production companies, these productions are often, if not all the time, insured anyway, so that they know that there's going to be a possibility of something that may happen. And obviously we know as this investigation continues, we'll find out a lot more about what took place here, what steps might have been missed, what fell through the cracks, or, you know, there's been talk of like the drug and alcohol screening, whether or not anybody was under the influence when this happened. That could also throw another wrench in all of this. Brian Kabateck, we want to thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We'll check in with you as this investigation in this case continues. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.